breakdown. Our paper will consist of 75 marks. You will notice on the paper that the first few questions is multiple choice, and after that it's open-ended questions. So what are the topics we are looking at? The first topic that we will be looking at is whole numbers, and that is roughly 10 marks. Now you'll see afterwards it says plus minus 2 marks. That means it can be 2 marks more or 2 marks less, and you'll see that with each topic. Then for integers, we're looking at 10 marks, exponents 10 marks, numeric and geometric patterns 10 marks, algebraic expressions you'll see is 18 marks, algebraic equations 11 marks, and functions, which includes flow diagrams, tables, formula and equations, make up 6 marks. So how will our session be working today, grade 9s? I will be putting up questions from the paper, and I will be allowing you some time to work through it. I will tell you in the start how long you've got to work through the questions, and we're going to ask that you send in your answers either via the WhatsApp line or via Facebook to us so we can see what you're doing and we can interact. So please take out your papers. If you don't have it with you, it will appear on the screen. And we are going to be starting on question 2. Now you will see in question 2, I've put the topics on top for you. Question 2 dealt with the topics of whole numbers and integers. So how are we going to start the session? You'll see that we've got question 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. You should roughly be using a minute per mark. So this is 8 marks, so it should take you 8 minutes. But I know you are writing on Friday, and I know that you've already studied. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow you 6 minutes to do these 3 questions. Once you've got the answers, pop them for us on the WhatsApp line or on Facebook so we can have a look at this, and then we will look at the answers. So grade 9s, let's start. You have got 6 minutes to do question 2.1 to 2.3 for me. Thank you. Grade 9s, let's look at our answers. If we look at question 2.1, it said if 72 equals 2 to the power of 3 times 3 to the power of 2, and 132 is 2 squared times 3 times 11, calculate the LCM, which is the lowest common multiple, of 72 and 132. So what have they done? They have already broken up, so if I'm looking at my whiteboard, they've already broken up 72 as a product of its prime factors of 2 to the power of 3 and 3 to the power of 2, and they've broken up 132 as 2 squared times 3 times 11. If they had not given that to you, which they did by this now, how would I get this on my calculator? On your calculator, if you want a number as a product of its prime factors, let's say I want to do 72. I can say 72 equals, and then if I press Shift and the fact button, it will give me that 72 is 2 to the power of 3 times 3 to the power of 2. That is just if you didn't know how to get it on your calculator. So what does my question ask? It asks the LCM, which is the lowest common multiple. How do I obtain the lowest common multiple again? I have to take every prime number that's available in both of these numbers to their highest exponent. So if I look at my prime numbers, I've got 2, 3, and 11. 2 to the power of 3 and 2 to the power of 2, the one with the biggest exponent is 2 to the power of 3. So it's 2 to the power of 3 times. For the 3's, I've got a 3 squared and a 3. Biggest exponent would be times 3 squared. And then there's only one 11, so times 11. And now on my calculator, I can press in 2 to the power of 3 times 3 squared times 11, and I get that my lowest common multiple is 792. Now, grade 9s, this question only asks the lowest common multiple. Please note that they can also ask you highest common factor. So make sure that you also go and revise how to do the highest common factor, even though it was not asked in this question. So let's go back to our whiteboard to question 2.2. Question 2.2. Mr. Peck withdraws 1,280 Rand that he needs to spend on gifts for his 3 sons. He decides to buy the gifts depending on the age of the sons. Calculate the cost of son A's gift if son A is 7 years old, son B is 5, and son C is 4 years. So this question is a ratio question, and he's buying the gift depending on the ages of the son. So son A is 7 years, son B is 5 years, and son C is 4 years. And I need to divide that 1,280 Rand in that ratio, but they're only asking what part is son A receiving. So first of all, let's see into how many parts this is divided. 7 plus 5 plus 4 gives me this. This is divided into 16 parts. Son A, our first one, must get 7 out of the 16. So what will my calculation be? 1,280 times 7 over 16. And that means that son A will receive, his gift will be worth 560 Rand. There we go. Question 2.3. A vehicle covers 860 kilometers with a full tank of petrol, and the tank's capacity is 45 liters. That means how much petrol can be filled into the tank. Calculate the average fuel consumption of the vehicle in liters per 100 kilometers. So this is a rate sum. So they want to know how many liters do I use for 100 kilometers. So let's write down what they've given us. They've told us how much petrol can I put in the tank? 45 liters. And with that, I can drive 860 kilometers. So to know for 100 kilometers, I first need to know what it will be for 1 kilometer. So how do I do that? I'm going to divide 860 by 860 to get to 1. But what I do on the right, I must do on the left. So 45 divided by 860 gives me 9 over 127 as a fraction, or you could have gotten the decimal. The decimal would be 0,0708666. Why am I not using the decimal? Because I don't want to make a rounding mistake, so I'm rather using the fraction. Have I answered my question? Not yet. My question asked for 100 kilometers. So now, if I want to know for 100 kilometers, I know for 1, how do I get to 100? What must I multiply 1 with to get to 100? Times 100. If I do it on the right, I've got to do it on the left. So 9 over 127 times 100 gives me 5,23 liters. Remember, we always round our answers off to 2 decimal places at the end, so make sure your rounding off is correct. Okay, grade 9s, let's go on to our next question. Well done there. So our next question, let's see what question 2.4 is. Question 2.4, there it is up for you. It says 3 marks, so it should take you about 3 minutes. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to answer that question quickly. And remember to send me your answers, either on the WhatsApp line or on Facebook. Let's look at 2.4. I hope you got it right. Let's look at it. They're telling us Mr. D wants to deposit 27,800 in an investment account. He receives the following details from Bank X. Earn 8.75% compound interest, very important, per annum for 2 years when you open a Grow Invest account now. Don't hesitate when it comes to making your money grow. Calculate the total amount that Mr. D will have in his account at the end of 2 years. Now, grade 9s, there are 2 ways we could have done the sum. So, they are talking about compound interest, so we must remember that means you earn interest on your interest every year. So, let's see. He's investing 27,800 Rand. So, in the first year, in year 1, if he's investing 27,800 Rand, and he's receiving 8.75% interest. Remember, if I'm going to multiply that as a fraction, it's 8.75 over 100, because percentage means out of 100. So let's see how much interest does he earn in the first year. When I type that in on my calculator, I realize that he earns 2,432 rand and 50 cents interest in that year. So that amount is the interest he earns in the first year. But now remember, they said this is compound, which means the next year he's not going to earn the same amount of interest. This must be added to the money he already has. So he's got his 27,800 rand. Now we add the interest he earned of 2,432 rand and 50 cents, which means at the end of the first year, he now has 30,232 rand and 50 cents in his investment. They told us that he's investing this for 2 years. So now I've got to repeat this process for a second year. So for year 2, I'm now starting off with 30,232 rand and 50 cents. And once again, he's going to earn 8.75%, so 8.75 over 100 interest. If I calculate that, in the second year, the interest he's going to earn is 2,645 rand and 34 cents. So that is now the interest earned in year 2. So what is the total in his bank account at the end of year 2? What did he start off with at the beginning of the year? 30,232 rand and 50 cents. Plus, how much interest did he get for the second year? 2,645 rand and 34 cents. So how much money does Mr. D have at the end of the 2 years? 32,877 rand and 84 cents. So that is the one way of doing the sum. The other way you could have done this is if your teacher taught you the formula for compound interest, because remember they said this is compound interest. So what is our formula for compound interest? A equals P bracket 1 plus I to the power of N. I always remember it as finances are a pain, so I write my letters on the side for myself. P-A-I-N. What does P stand for again? The principal amount, the amount we started with our investment. What did we start our investment with? 27,800. A is the final amount. That is what we've got to calculate. What is our interest? 8.75 over 100. And for how long in the time are we investing it? 2 years. So if I now substitute into my formula, I'm going to say A equals, what is my principal? What did I start with? 27,800. Brackets 1 plus, what was my interest rate? As a fraction, 8.75 over 100. And to the power N for how long? 2 years. And if I type that in on my calculator, I get the same answer of 32,877 rand and 84 cents. So 2 ways to do the sum. Whichever method you prefer, it does not matter, but make sure you show all your calculations. Well done, grade 9. So let's go on to the last 2 questions that was on question 2. Number 2.5 and 2.6. You will see they count 7 marks, but I'm only going to allocate you 5 minutes to do this. So you have got 5 minutes to do number 2.5 and number 2.6. Let's go. Okay, grade 9s. Thank you to those that are answering on the Facebook and WhatsApp group. Zoe, I see you put in an answer. For the rest of you, please remember when you put in an answer to also tell me what question number you're answering. So let's look at question 2.5 and 2.6. Question 2.5. They tell us, simplify, very important, without using a calculator and show all your calculations. So why without using a calculator? Because your teacher wants to know if you know your basic rules. So if I look at this, the first thing I've got to do is I have to know what is the square root of 36. So grade 9s, what is the square root of 36? The square root of 36 is 6. So what does this mean? It means 2 times, so 2 in brackets times, the square root of 36 is 6. Then plus negative 2 to the power of 6. So what does that mean? It means negative 2 times 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 negative 2. What do 6 negatives makes? It makes a positive. And 2 to the power of 6 is 64. So that's plus 64 and then divided by the cube root of negative 8. So what number multiplied by itself 3 times would give me negative 8? It's negative 2. Now, I must remember BODMAS. So, 2 times 6 is 12, and then I have to go do 64 divided by negative 2. So, plus, what is 64 divided by negative 2? A positive divided by a negative is a negative. 64 divided by 2 is 32. So, 12, a positive and a negative is a negative, minus 32. So, my answer is negative 20. And now you're going to say, how is that 4 marks? Grade 9s, if you used your calculator and you just wrote down the answer, you're only going to receive 1 out of the 4 marks. So where are the 4 marks allocated? For knowing that the square root of 36 is 6, for knowing that negative 2 to the power of 6 is 64, and then that the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2, and then our final mark is for the answer. Question 2.6 is a little bit of a head scratcher, so let's look at it. Determine, without using a calculator, which number is bigger. 4 square root 2 or 2 square root 5. And I'm not allowed to use a calculator. So grade 9s, how do we compare things? Let's take this back to primary school. What if I asked you who is bigger, a half or a third? How do we compare fractions? We compare fractions by making the denominators the same. So we would have to put them over the same denominator. And for 2 and 3, we would have used 6, and then we could have compared. So that would have been times 3, and that one would have been times 2. 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 2 is 2, and then I could have compared my fractions. So same concept. I can only compare things if they are the same. So let's go make them both surds. So I don't have a number times a surd. Let's make them all surds. So let's go see. What number's square root was 4? So what number, if I take the square root of, I get 4. We should know that one. It is 16. So the square root of 16 is 4 times the square root of 2. I can write this as 1 square root, and I can say it's 16 times 2. So it's the square root of 16 times 2, 32. Let's go do the same on this side. What number, when I took the square root of it, I got an answer of 2. That is 4. So it's the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. Let's write it as one thing. 4 times 5. So it's the square root of 20. And now I can compare. What do you think will be bigger, the square root of 32 or the square root of 20? The square root of 32 is bigger. So my answer is square root 32 is bigger. And that was 4 square root 2. So this one was our bigger one. Grade 9s, now I'm going to make you page a little bit. I want you to go back to the start of your question paper, to one of the multiple choice questions, to question 1.1. So with the multiple choice questions, you will see you always get an option A, B, C, and D. And some of them might look right, and they are there because they're called distractors. And they're supposed to make you think it's right. So I'm going to give you 1 minute quickly to simplify that ratio, work it out yourself first, and then see if you can find the answer. So you have got 1 minute because it's 1 mark. Go simplify that ratio for us. Okay, we're back with 1.1. Imtiaz, very well done on getting the answer correct. You are correct, but let's look at how you did it. So they asked us, what is the simplest form of the ratio 270 to 360 to 630? Which means I must simplify. Now the first thing I can see immediately is I can divide everything by 10. So I'm going to divide all of them by 10. So that gives me 27 to 36 to 63. Now be careful. You see, that's the first answer there, and immediately you think that's the answer. Remember I said, work it out first, and then we're going to go check the answers. That is why it's called a distractor. So what can go into 27, 36, and 63? I first divided by 10, and now I can divide by 9. Could you have divided by 90 to start off with? Of course you could have. So if I divide by 9, it's 3 to 4 to 7. And let's see, is that answer there? Yes, it is. So our answer is B. Well done, Imtiaz. Let's go on to our next question, question 1.3. Grade 9s, this one should take you 30 seconds, not even a minute. If I read the instruction, determine the value of the cube root of 0,027. Does it say you are not allowed to use a calculator? No, it does not. It doesn't say anything. So unless the sum says don't use a calculator, please take out your calculator and use your calculator. There you go, grade 9s. You've got 30 seconds for this one. Okay, grade 9s, let's look at 1.3. Remember I said if they don't say don't use your calculator, use your calculator. So let's look at this. On my calculator, if I type in how do I get cube root, my calculator has square root there. So to get cube root, I've got to go shift and the button above that of 0.027, and my calculator tells me the answer is 3/10. And is that answer there? Yes, it is A. So how do I do this if I didn't have a calculator? Let's say I don't have a calculator. How do I do this? The easiest way would be to write it, instead of a decimal, as a fraction. So the cube root of 27 over how many decimal places? 1, 2, 3. So that means it's over 1,000. So I must take the cube root of 27 and I must get the cube root of 1,000. The cube root of 27, what number multiplied by itself will give me 27 is 3. And the cube root of 1,000 is 10. So our answer is A. Well done, grade 9s. Okay, time for us to page again. We are now moving on. We are moving on to question 3. Question 3, you will see, is exponents. So there's question 3.1 and 3.2. It is 8 marks. So in this case, I am going to give you 8 minutes because it's on our exponential laws. So you have got 8 minutes, grade 9s. Let's look at our answers, grade 9, for our exponents. So, question 3.1. They tell us to simplify and give your answer with positive exponents where necessary. So, if we look at 3.1, they've given us the cube root of 64 times x to the power of negative 9 times y to the power of 27. So, I have got to take the cube roots. So let's do it bit for bit. What is the cube root of 64? What number times itself 3 times would give me 64? That is 4. Now for my exponents. What do I do with my exponents again if I take a cube root? I've got to divide my exponent by 3. So I'm going to say it's x to the power of negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3. And then y, it's an exponent, so I'm applying my exponent laws. 27 divided by 3 is 9. Am I allowed to leave my answer like that? No, I have to leave it with a positive exponent. So how does that look as a positive exponent? Remember, we can make anything a fraction by putting it over 1. And then how do I make it a positive exponent? Who is the problem here? The x to the power of negative 3. So what's my final answer going to be? It's going to be 4 y to the power of 9. They were fine up there. If I bring x to the power of negative 3 down, what happens to my exponent? It becomes positive. So it's 4y to the power of 9 over x to the power of 3. Question 3.1.2. There was a lot going on in question 3.1.2. So, let's look at it. Negative 2 times, in brackets, negative 3xy squared. That is all raised to a power of 2. Then divided by 18, x to the power of 4, y to the power of 4. Where do I start? I have to do the exponents first. So I am raising exponents. I've got to remember the power of 2 on the outside of the bracket. It belongs to everything inside the bracket. So let's go do that first. I'm going to say negative 2, and now I have to raise everything inside to a power of 2. So, negative 3 to the power of 2. A negative times a negative is a positive. 3 squared means 3 times 3, so that's 9. X to the power of, when I'm raising exponents, what do I do with the exponents again? I am multiplying them. So, remember there's an imaginary 1. So, x to the power of 1. So, 1 times 2 is 2. For the y's, I've got to multiply my exponents. 2 times 2 is 4. I can leave this as a division, or if I want, I can write another way to write a division is to write it as a fraction, because a fraction line means divide. So divided by 18, x to the power of 4, y to the power of 4. What is my next step in my order of operations? What do I have to do first? I first have to multiply into the bracket now using our distributive law. So let's go do and multiply in my negative 2 into my bracket. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18 x to the power of 2 y to the power of 4 over 18 x to the power of 4 y to the power of 4. And then I must remember to simplify. So, negative 18 over 18. 18 over 18 is 1, so it will be negative 1. Let's look at our x's. In the numerator at the top, I had x squared, x to the power of 2. In the denominator at the bottom, I had x to the power of 4. So grade 9, the easiest way for me to ask you this is, where's the most x's? Are the most x's at the top or at the bottom? The most x's are at the bottom. And how many x's do we have extra? We've got 2, so x to the power of 2. And let's look what's happening at the y's. Y to the power of 4 and y to the power of 4. So are there any additionals? No, they cancel. So what is my final answer? Negative 1 over x squared. Question 3.2. Also, a little bit of one to think about. Divide 3 to the power of 2024 equally amongst 3 people. So if I'm dividing something amongst 3 people, how do I write this as a sum? I say divide by 3. So my bases are the same, and this is a division sum. Grade 9s, remember that imaginary exponent. What is written on top of the 3? It's 3 to the power of 1. So when I divide, what do I do with my exponents? I subtract them. So it's 3 to the power of 2024. When I divide, I subtract my exponents, minus 1. So 3 to the power of 2023. And there we go. Let's go on to our next question quick, and we are going to do this one together. Question 1.2. They ask me to simplify the following. They give me 5x to the power of 0 minus, in brackets, 5x squared, all raised to the power of 0. Now, grade 9s, don't go look at the answers first. We're going to work it out together. So what are they testing in this sum? They're testing if I know what is a number to the power of 0 or a variable to the power of 0. So let's look at the first one. Who has the power of 0, the 5 or the x? Only the x has the power of 0. So it's going to be 5 times, what is any number or variable raised to the power of 0? 1. Minus the second term. Where is the power of 0? It's on the outside, which means it belongs to the entire bracket, which means that entire bracket, anything to the power of 0 is 1. So now we can finish it quickly. 5 times 1 is 5, minus 1 is 4. And let's go look. Do we have that answer in our multiple choice? Yes, it is number B. So there we go. Grade 9s, we are going to go on to question 4 now. Question 4 is on number patterns and functions. So I'm going to let you do question 4.1. So what I'm going to do is, you're going to do question 4.1 up until 4.1.4. You'll see that is 9 minutes. So I'm going to give you the 9 minutes to do that. We're actually going to give you an extra few minutes. So let's make that one 12 minutes for you to do, in case you quickly need to go for a bathroom break as well, seeing we've been busy for a bit now. So I'm going to give you 12 minutes to do this one, and when we come back after 12 minutes, we will answer this question. There you go, grade 9s. Welcome back, grade 9s. Thank you to everyone that has been sending us answers in the Facebook and on WhatsApp. And Kamvilichle, well done on all those answers. I see you've sent all of them to us, but well done, grade 9. So let's look at what is happening with question 4.1. They ask us, given the following pattern, 14, 11, 8, and 5. Our first question, 4.1.1, we have to write down the next two terms if this pattern continues. So let's see what's happening in this pattern. What is happening from 14 to 11, from 11 to 8, and from 8 to 5? I am subtracting 3 every time. And that is called my constant difference. So if I continue, my next number, 5 minus 3 would be 2. And then 2 minus 3 would be negative 1. 4.1.2. Determine the general rule. Write the rule in the form Tn equals An plus B. Now, grade 9s, there are different ways your teachers could have taught you how to do the general rule. The way I do the general rule is I go Tn equals A. Remember, they said we must write it as Tn equals An plus B. Now, like I said, there's different ways. A is what is my constant difference. So what is my constant difference? What am I adding or subtracting the whole time? Negative 3. So I know it's going to be negative 3n. And then to get B, there's two ways you can do this. You can either say, okay, if I take the first number, 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. And what must I then add or subtract to get to an answer of 14? I must add 17. So it's negative 3n plus 17. The other way you could have done it, you could have said it's negative 3n, so I'm multiplying by negative 3. And then B, I can also see as what was the imaginary number that would have stayed in front of this. So if there was a number in front of this, it's called T0. What would that number have been? That would have been 17. So there's two different ways. You can go with whatever way your teacher taught you, as long as you're able to get to the rule. 4.1.3. Use your rule to calculate the 19th term. So if I need to know what is the 19th term, it means I must take my rule. Negative Tn is negative 3n plus 17, and I must now go and substitute in 19. So I want to know what will the 19th number be. So I'm going to go negative 3 times 19 plus 17. And I can use my calculator for that. And my answer is negative 40. The next one, 4.1.4. Which term in the pattern will be the first that will be less than minus 100? So to be able to answer that, I first need to know which term in the pattern is equal to minus 100. So I'm going to take my rule, negative 3n plus 17, and I'm going to make it equal to negative 100. So I can work out which term in the pattern is equal to negative 100. And now we're back to a grade 8 equation. So negative 3n equals negative 100 minus 17. That gives me negative 3n is equal to negative 117. And if I now, remember negative 3n means negative 3 times n. So if I only want n, I need to divide both sides by negative 3. So negative 117 divided by negative 3. So n is 39. That means the 39th term will be equal to negative 100. But they asked me which term in the pattern will be the first that will be less than negative 100. Let's look, is this pattern increasing or decreasing? It is decreasing, it's going down. So if the 39th number term, if term number 39 was negative 100, which one will be less than negative 100? The pattern is decreasing, it's going down. So the one after that, so it will be term number 40. So my answer is the 40th term. And there we go. Let's go on to our next question, question 4.2. Question 4.2 counts 5 marks, but I am only going to allocate you 4 minutes to do question 4.2. So grade 9s, 4 minutes, go do question 4.2 for me, please. That is our time, grade 9, so let's look at 4.2. On 4.2, they've given you the table below, and I've redrawn it for us, and they ask us to determine the rule. So all they've done now is they've given me a number pattern in a table. To determine the rule in the form y equals instead of tn equals, that shows the relationship between x and y. So like I said, there's different ways to do this. So if I'm looking, the numbers are consecutive. They're going -2, -1, 0, then they've skipped something. So let's see what is happening here. What is my constant difference? What is happening between 1 and 4 and 4 and 7? I am adding 3. So now they didn't say I must give it as tn equals, I must give it as y equals. My constant difference is 3, so now I'm going to multiply with 3, and now we're going to say x, because they've used the x in the table. And now I can go look at this one. What is -2 times 3 is -6. How do I get to 1? I must add 7. The other easy one to look at is 0. What is 3 times 0? 0. And if I add, how do I get to 7? I add 7. Question 4.2.2. Hence, that means I must use my rule. That's what the word hence mean. Determine the values of A and B. So let's go see. Where is A? A is standing over here, and it's standing where the x's are supposed to be, which means I must work out what number must be in x's place if the y, the answer is 31. So I'm going to say, I'm going to use my equation. Instead of y, I'm going to say 31 equals 3. What did they put in x's place? The letter A, plus 7. And now we're back to our grade 8 equation again. Okay, so it's going to be 31. If I do the additive inverse, minus 7 equals 3a. 31 minus 7 is 24 equals 3a. What does this mean again? 3 times a. I need to calculate a. So I need to do the inverse operation, which means the opposite. What's the opposite of times? Divide. So 24 divided by 3. So 8 is equal to A. Remember my question said I must get A and B. So now let's go do B. Where is B? B is written over there. Here is our B. And B is standing in the place of Y. So now I must take this same equation of mine, and instead of saying Y equals, I must use the letter B equals 3 times, what is x here? 13 plus 7. And that's quite a simple one. I can just use my calculator. 3 times 13 plus 7. So B is equal to 46. Let's go back now to our multiple choice, and we are going to look at question 1.6, and we're going to do this one together. So question 1.6, they ask me to determine the general rule for the pattern 3, 9, 27, and 81. So I must look at the numbers 3, 9, 27, and 81, and grade 9s, you should recognize these numbers. These are very special numbers. They are cube numbers, because remember 9 is 3 to the power of 2. 27 is 3 to the power of 3. 81 is 3 to the power of 4. And 3, remember we can write as 3 to the power of 1. So what is happening? The 3, the base stays the same, and it's the exponent that changes, and that's the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. So this is a very special pattern. So what is my pattern? It's Tn, my base was 3, and n is going to be my exponent. And if we look at that, that is answer number D. And that's the end for number patterns and functions. So now grade 9s, now we get to the interesting part, our algebraic expressions. We're going to start with question 5.1. Very important to always read the instruction, please. It says simplify the following expressions. And grade 9s, that is 8 marks, but I am going to give you 6 minutes to do that for me. So you've got 6 minutes to do question 5.1 for us. Grade 9s, let's look at question 5.1. So important that we read the instruction. Simplify the following expression. If we look at 5.1.1, it's given us 3x plus 4 in the brackets, and the second bracket's 3x minus 4. What must we do here? We must multiply out the brackets using the distributive law or FOIL. So, if I go 3x times 3x, that is 9, x times x, x squared. Then 3x times negative 4. A positive times a negative is a negative, and 3 times 4 is 12, and x. Next step, positive 4 times 3x. Positive times a positive is a positive. 4 times 3 is 12, x. Last step, positive 4 times negative 4. A positive times a negative is a negative. 4 times 4 is 16. Remember, I am not done. I always have to look for like terms. Are there any like terms? Yes. Negative 12x and positive 12x. So let's go finish our sum. It's 9x squared. It had no like terms. Negative 12x plus 12x is 0, so there's no x's left. And what is left? Minus 16, and there's my answer. Question 5.1.2. If I look at this, first thing I see, it's fractions and it's a division. So immediately, how do we divide fractions? We must change it to a times. And what happens to the second fraction? You have to flip it. It becomes 12 over x minus 2. So now that I've just looked at that, let me look at the first fraction. On the first fraction, in the numerator, I must notice something. I can take out a common factor. And what is the common factor I can take out? I can take out a 2. So if I take out 2 as a common factor, bracket open for what's left. If I take out 2 from 2x, there's x left, minus 2 goes into 4 twice, over 3. So now that I've changed it into a times, I can cancel out numerator and denominator, terms that can cancel out. So let's see what can cancel out. X minus 2 can cancel out with x minus 2. 3 can go into 12. How many times? 4 times. So what do I have left now? I've got left nothing in my denominator, so that's 1, so I don't have to make it a fraction. And in the numerator at the top, 2 times 4. And 2 times 4 is 8. There is my answer. Question 5.1.3, grade 9s. If you see a bracket squared and the instruction is to simplify, I want to ask you to always, please, what does it mean? I've got the bracket twice. So write the bracket out twice. Even if you know the shortcut, just be safe. And now we're back to the same type of sum as 5.1.1. I have to do the distributive law or FOIL. Okay, first terms. A half times a half. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. So it's 1 over 4 or a quarter. And x times x is x squared. Now a half x times positive 2. Let's do the signs first. A positive times a positive is a positive. A half times 2. If you're not sure, use your calculator, but a half times 2 is 1. 1 what? X. So I'm going to say 1x. Remember, you didn't have to write the 1. I write it there just to be safe. Now, next step. Positive 2 times a half. A positive times a positive is a positive. 2 times a half is 1x. Last step. Positive 2 times positive 2 is positive 4. Let's go look for our like terms. My like terms, plus 1x, plus 1x. A quarter x squared didn't have any like terms, so I just write it down. if I add up my like terms, 1x plus 1x, be careful, I'm adding terms so I don't mess with the exponents. If I've got 1x and I've got 1x, it's plus 2x. And then plus 4. There we go, grade 9s. Let's go on to question 5.2 and 5.3. Remember I said, always read the instruction. The instruction by 5.2 says factorize. So make sure you factorize. I am going to give you 7 minutes to do this question 5.2 and 5.3. Let's look at question 5.2, grade 9s. Latita, by the way, well done on the answer of 5.2.1. Perfectly correct, but let's see how she did it. So, grade 9s. Question 5.2, it said factorize. Remember, when we factorize, there's three things we were taught to do. So let's look quickly at what is the three things that we were taught to do. We can either take out a common factor, or we can have dots, which is a difference of two squares, or it can be a trinomial, which is something with three terms. We always check our common factor first. So question 5.2.1, if we have to factorize, there's two terms, but let's see, is there a common factor? Yes, there is a common factor. The common factor is x. I can take an x out by both terms, and I can take out one y. Why not two? Because there isn't two y's there, so I can take out one y. Bracket open for what's left. If I take out from 3xy squared a x, I take out the x and I take out one y. There's left a 3 and a y. Minus. Now, in the second term, I'm taking the x and the y. So how many times does it go in itself? It goes in itself once. And there it is factorized. Question 5.2.2. If I look at this, I should notice something. I should notice that these two brackets, m minus 3n and 3n minus m, are almost the same. They're not the same. They're almost the same. The problem is the second one is swapped. So how do I fix this? I apply my sign change rule. So I want them both to be m minus 3n. I want this one also to be an m minus 3n. I need the signs to change. So how do I do the sign change rule? I change the sign in front of that term, so that becomes a positive. Now, if I look at this, the bracket m minus 3n, it is the thing they share. It is my common factor. So I'm going to take out the bracket as my common factor, m minus 3n. That is now going to be my common factor. Bracket open for what's left. If I take it away from the first term, what do we have left? 2x. If I take out m minus 3n by the second term, what do we have left? Plus 5y. And there I go, I'm done. The third one, if I look at this, there's no common factor. It is not a difference of two squares, because a difference of two squares means I need two terms. They both need to be a square, and it needs to have a minus in the middle. This has got 1, 2, 3 terms, which means it is a trinomial. How do I factorize a trinomial again? Two brackets. First, what times what will give me x squared? X times x. And now I need to go decide. Now I look at the back at 35. What times what gives 35? 1 times 35 and 5 times 7. I need to somehow get a combination of these that will give me negative 12. How can I get to negative 12? If I say minus 5 minus 7. So it's going to be x minus 5 and x minus 7. And I can always check the back again. A negative times a negative makes a positive. 5 times 5 times 7 is 35. Question 5.3. They ask me to calculate the value of x squared minus xy plus y to the power of 3 if x is 4 and y is negative 2. So grade 9s, this is a very simple sum. All I've got to go do is I've got to go substitute. Everywhere I see a x, I must replace x with a 4. Wherever I see a y, I must replace y with a negative 2. So, instead of x squared, what am I replacing x with? 4. So I'm going to say 4 squared. Minus, remember we substitute in brackets. So instead of x, 4. And then in y's place, negative 2. Plus, in a bracket, to the power of 3, what must come in y's place? negative 2. And now I can just use my calculator because nowhere did they say I was not allowed to use my calculator. So, if I substitute in and I use my calculator, I get my answer is 16. So grade 9s, we're going to page back again quickly to question 1.4 and we're going to do 1.4 together. It is in our multiple choice. They say the factors, which means I've got to factorize, 9x squared minus 121. So if I look at it, there's two terms. Is there a common factor? No. Is it maybe dots? 9 is a square. X to the power of 2 is a square. Anything with a positive exponent is a square. And 121 is also a square. So yes, it is dots. So I'm going to have two brackets. The one bracket must have a plus and the other bracket must have a minus. So now, what did I have to write here? If I multiplied them, I would get 9x squared. So what is the square root of 9? It is 3. So it's 3 times 3 would give me 9. So 3 at the beginning of each one. What is the square root of x to the power of 2? X and x. So if I multiply them, I would get 9x squared. For the back, what is the square root of 121? That is 11. So let's go see. 11 times 11 is 121. A positive times a negative is a negative. Is that answer on my options? Yes, it is number D. Okay, grade 9s, we are heading to our last question. Question 6. It's on algebraic equations. You see it's 11 marks, but I want to make sure that we can still mark the answers as well. So I am going to give you 7 minutes to do question 6, and then we are going to look through the answers so we can make sure we've gone through everything today. Let's do our last question. You've got 7 minutes. Okay, grade 9s, let's mark our last question. By the way, well done to all of you putting the answers on Facebook. They don't always come through quick enough, but Rixie, well done on getting all those answers correct. So let's see at how it is done. Okay, question 6.1. They tell me to solve for x. So, if I'm reading my instructions solve for x, it means I am going to have to multiply out the bracket first by using the distributive law. So, let's go over to our whiteboard. If I distribute in the 2, 2 times x is 2x. 2 times positive 3 is positive 6 equals x plus 6. Now, remember grade 9s, when we have an equation and we've got x's on the left and on the right, bring them all to the one side and take the numbers to the other side. So I am going to do my x's on the left. So I'm going to say 2x, x becomes negative x equals 6. And that one becomes negative 6. 2x minus x is 1x, or just x. And 6 minus 6 is 0. And as simple as that. Question 6.2. If I look at question 6.2, the first thing I should notice is this is a fraction and that is a whole number. I don't want to compare them like that. I want them either to both be fractions or both be whole numbers. How can I make this a whole number? If I bring the 7 up, what was the exponent of 7? It was 1. So if I bring it up, it's going to become negative 1. So I'm going to say it's 7 to the power of negative 1. An important thing to remember, a fraction, 7 to the power of negative 1, is a seventh. And that was to the power of x equals, and now I'm going to break 49 up into its prime numbers. What is 49? It's 7 to the power of 2. Let's go apply our exponential law. What do I do with my exponents again? If I'm raising them, I must multiply. So it's 7 to the power of negative 1 times x. What is negative 1 times x? Negative 1x equals 7 to the power of 2. What did we learn? This is an equation, which means the left and the right must balance. If the bases are equal, that means the exponents must be equal. So negative 1x must be equal to 2. What does this mean? Negative 1 times x. So if I only want x, I've got to divide the other side by negative 1. 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2. And there we got that answer. Question 6.3. Grade 9s, I'm going to give you a trick for equations. If you get anything with a power of 2, bring everything to the one side. So it says equal to 0. So x to the power of 2 minus 81 equals to 0. So the moment you get an x or a y with a power of 2, bring everything one side. So it says equal to 0. And now, with the power of 2, if it's a quadratic equation, that's an equation that has an x or a y to the power of 2, and we've made it equal to 0, we must always go and factorize. So let's go see. What is this if I'm factorizing? Is there a common factor? No. There's 2 terms. So it can't be a trinomial. And there's no common factor, which leaves me with dots. Let's see. This is a square. Difference of 2 squares. Difference means it must be a minus. That is a minus. And 81 is a square. So I'm going to have 2 brackets. The first one is going to be a plus, and the second one's going to be a minus. What times what gives me x squared? X times x. What times what gives me 81? 9 times 9. Now, what does this mean? How do I get, if I multiply something equal to 0? Example, what's 10 times 0? 0. What's 100 times 0? 0. So to multiply things and get an answer of 0, it means either that one had to be 0 or this one had to be 0. It's the only way if I'm multiplying to get an answer of 0. So it means either the first one, the x plus 9, had to be equal to 0, which means x is negative 9, Or my second one, my x minus 9 had to be equal to 0, which means x was equal to 9. If you just take the square root up here, you're only going to end up with one answer, and then you're missing an answer. That's why I said the safe bet is, if it's a power of 2, bring it to the left, and we factorize. Question 6.4. We are subtracting fractions, and it is an equation. It's an equation, and I'm subtracting fractions. So I want to get rid of the fraction. How do I get rid of the fraction? I multiply by the lowest common multiple. And what would be the lowest common multiple for 4 and 7? That would be 28. Trick grade 9s, remember to go put the 2 on the right also over 1, so it's also a fraction. So, how many times does 4 go into 28? It goes in 7 times. So I've got to multiply the numerator with 7. So 7 times x minus 5. Then I've got a negative. How many times does 7 go into 28? 4 times. So 4 times the second numerator, 3 minus 4x, equals, how many times does 1 go into 28? 28 times. And I've got to multiply it with the 2. And now I've gotten rid of the fraction. So let's go apply our distributive law and multiply in. 7 times x is 7x. 7 times negative 5, negative 35. Be careful now for the second one. We're multiplying in negative 4. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 4 times negative 4x, and a negative is a positive 16x. And 28 times 2 is 56. X's to the one side, numbers to the other side because there's no squares. So, 7x plus 16x. And on the right, 56 plus 35 plus 12. 7x plus 16x is 23x. 56 plus 35 plus 16 plus 12, is 103. And now if I divide by 23, x is either 103 over 23, or if you give it to me as a decimal, it's 4,47. Okay, grade 9s, we're going to look at one more sum, and then we are done for the day. We are going to page all the way back to question 1.5. And we are going to do 1.5 together. Question 1.5, they told you to solve for x in the following equation. In a bracket, half x minus 5, and in the other bracket, x plus 6 equals 0. So if I look at question 1.5, let's go look at it quickly. Do you see it's already factorized and it says equal to 0? So very similar to our previous one, but they've already factorized it for me. So how do I know which bracket is the 0? I don't. It's either the first one or the second one. So let's go do them both. It's either the first one, either a half x minus 5 equals 0. So that means it will be a half x equals 5. And remember, if I only want x, what does this mean? It means a half times x. So if I do the inverse, I'm going to have to say 5 divided by a half. 5 divided by a half. Please use your calculators, grade 9s. If I, for example, have 5 pizzas and I cut them each in half, how many pieces am I going to have left? 10. The last one, x.6. So I'm going to go x plus 6 equals 0. That could have been my other one. So x is negative 6. So if we look on the page, is our answer there? Yes, our answer is there. It is B. That is it for us today, grade 9s. Thank you very much for joining us for this first session. I hope this helped you. Thank you for everyone that sent in answers on the WhatsApp and Facebook. Good luck in your preparation for your maths exam, and we will see you again next term. Thank you so much, grade 9s. Enjoy the rest of your day.